Do you know why the testicles hang from the body?
To keep it...
We work with the U.S. military, so we freeze the sperm of the Navy SEALs. We do the same for the Green Berets. We work with VA centers all across the country.
Frequent sex, frequent ejaculation. Does it impact sperm quality?
Yes, it does.
What?
To freeze your sperm, you have to go to a clinic and you have to masturbate at the clinic. There's a circular table in the middle with porn magazines on it and a remote control. You turn on the TV, but the TV still shows the video that was playing from the person before you. And you are frankly sitting there imagining every bare, hairy ass that has been in and around that room.
Do you enjoy collecting your sperm at home?
That is correct. Well, I will say there's days where you're just really not in the mood, but you're doing it for science. In 2014, the concept of egg freezing was still considered experimental. Every developed country in the world has a birth rate that is just plummeting. And that has all kinds of implications for the way society functions, the way government functions. I would want to use my frozen sperm from when I was 26 because it is younger, it is healthier, it has less DNA damage. We're going to have healthier kids.
Khaled Kteily, aka the Sperm King.
In an ideal world, your parents sit you down, they have an awkward conversation, they hand you a legacy kit, and they say, hey, son, before you go off, just freeze your sperm because we want to make sure we can have grandchildren.
I had an amazing conversation today with Khaled Kteily. He's the founder and CEO of Legacy, an at-home sperm freezing and testing company. We spoke about everything about how hot tubs affect your sperm quality, about how he made PG slap his face. We even had conversations on the future of procreation, artificial wombs, and much more. You must tune into this conversation if you are interested in having a family and maybe even freezing your sperm. Hey, Khaled, how are you?
Hey, Kian, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you. It's
been a minute, yeah? How's your new year treating you?
New year was good. New year, new start, new me, new sperm.
I mean, just have to say right off the back, you're wearing the Sperm King.
Correct.
On your sweatshirt. I just have to ask, is this custom?
You know what? It actually was my birthday a couple of days ago, and I got it as a birthday gift.
So one of your friends gave you
Correct.
the Sperm...
Actually had it custom made in legacy colors with a Sperm King on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it like... Did they think about putting your initials or something on it? Like, is there KK
They thought
somewhere?
about it, but it's just Sperm King. And actually, if you go to spermking.com, it redirects to my LinkedIn.
No way. So you're proud of that?
I bought that URL for a couple $1,000s in Bitcoin from a German hacker a few years ago.
Okay, did you keep the big...
No, unfortunately, it's now worth a lot more than it was.
So basically, you did something stupid.
Money. Correct.
Okay, got it.
We didn't say the Sperm King always makes good decisions, but he's a man of action.
Okay, well, first things first. I mean, you have one of the most interesting founding stories, for sure, compared to anyone I've ever met.
Thank you.
Right? And so let's go into this a little bit.
Okay.
You know, there's quote-unquote hot drinks on your lap.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to spill the tea, if you will.
Oh, come on.
Okay.
I got PTSD for that.
What's the story here? How'd you come up with Legacy?
Sure.
Maybe even give one sentence of what Legacy is, and then tell us the founding story.
Sure. So Legacy is a male fertility company. We help men test and freeze their sperm without ever having to go to a clinic.
Okay.
So we developed a mail-in kit. You order it online. We ship it to your house. You produce a sample from home. Ship it back. We do a clinic-grade semen analysis, and then we will freeze your sperm. So this goes way back for me. It's been almost a decade at this point from when this accident first happened. But long story short, I was holding 4 cups of tea and coffee from Starbucks.
Okay.
And you know those cardboard cup holders they give you when you've ordered more than one
crappy.
drink?
Yeah, they're kind of crappy.
Yep. So I'm sitting in the passenger seat of a car. We're driving down a highway, and I have got those drinks. I'm holding them on my lap. We're driving. The car in front of us brakes very suddenly. So we brake very suddenly. And what happens to the 4 scaldingly hot coffees and teas that were on my lap? They spill all over.
Oh, God.
And I still remember I was in full suit and tie. I jump out the car. I rip my suit pants off. Because the thing is, not only was the liquid burning, but actually my suit was absorbing the hot liquid. It ripped the skin clean off my thigh. I jumped out, and there I was by the side of the highway wearing no pants, but otherwise wearing a dress shirt, blazer, and a tie. I ended up getting second-degree burns. And second-degree burns, thankfully, they do heal fully, but it took a month and a half, during which I basically had to wear loose gym shorts. I couldn't wear normal pants. And it was around that time that one of my colleagues was going through chemotherapy, and he mentioned to me that he had frozen his sperm before starting chemotherapy. And so I had just had this traumatic accident. he had just mentioned this concept that I had never heard of before around sperm freezing. And so I decided to do it myself.
Okay, so then you went to a clinic and you actually
I literally Googled. I was living in Cambridge, Massachusetts at the time. I Googled local sperm bank in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Local sperm bank in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And this is right after you had severely burned yourself.
Correct.
And so were you worried about the quality of your sperm?
I was. I mean, look, I've always imagined myself as a husband and father. And I kind of in that moment asked myself, imagine it had been worse. Imagine it had caused permanent damage. Imagine I'd been disfigured. Imagine I couldn't have kids. Imagine something had happened. At the time I knew very little about how sperm worked and spermatogenesis worked.
Yeah.
It was just a scary thought. And so I wanted to make sure that I was okay.
Okay.
And I loved the idea of freezing my sperm so that if anything were to happen, I would still be able to have a child someday.
Absolutely. So you went to this clinic. You looked this up. You found some random ass clinic, right? Presumably.
It was a California cryobank.
Okay.
Funnily enough, I got an email from a realtor a few months ago. That same location is now up for sale.
Wow.
And I was like, how funny. It would really come full circle if I went and
why don't you go buy
bought that location.
That'd be kind of crazy.
But let me describe to you what the clinic process is like for the average guy.
Okay.
So you walk into the clinic.
And this was like your experience then. So this is you at the time.
Correct.
You're going,
Correct.
and then this is what you realize. Yeah,
correct,
tell me more.
but very reflective and representative of what the average guy goes through when he's doing this. So walk into the clinic, small waiting room. You are avoiding eye contact with every other person in that waiting room.
Okay.
Because you know why they're there and they know why you're here.
Okay.
You walk up to the receptionist. The receptionist then loudly asks you, within earshot of everyone, questions like, great, sir, do you currently have any STIs? And you're like, I don't think so. She's like, okay, sir, do you currently have sex with men? I'm like, I don't think so. She's like, okay, do you...
You don't think so?
Okay. Just 2010s were different times. Sir, do you currently have cancer? I'm like, I don't think so. She's like, okay, and are you transitioning to become a woman? I'm like, I don't think so. And she looks at me like, okay, well then why are you here? And I say, well, it feels like a good idea.
So there's almost, just want to stop you here, which is like this interesting point where it's almost as if there has to be a problem to be freezing your sperm.
Totally,
right?
totally.
And then you're basically coming in and saying, actually, no, I just want to freeze my sperm.
I want to do it proactively, but everything they've ever thought about is people doing reactive. Exactly, which is something we should come back to.
And that's interesting because we see a lot in genetics too. This idea of sometimes someone gets actually diagnosed with cancer and then they do genetic tests. In other words, the entire medical system is kind of built in this very reactive fashion. So you're saying that applies all the way to the level of sperm freezing.
Correct. And in fact, it's not only that it's reactive, but to doctors, a doctor wants you to do it exactly the way that they were trained.
Okay.
And they want you to do it in the clinic, at the lab, no matter how poor the patient experience, no matter how much it inconveniences you. And so that's what happens. So there I am. I'm at the clinic. They hand me the cup. They look at me like I'm a weirdo, right? They hand me the cup. They take me to a small room. The room is the size of a large cupboard. There's a black leather couch. There's a circular table in the middle with porn magazines on it and a remote control. You turn on the TV because that's where they have pornographic materials. But the TV still shows the video that was playing from the person before you, and specifically, it's paused where they had paused. Okay. We don't need to go into details.
Okay.
And so they then shared with me that I had 10 minutes to produce my sperm sample because someone needed to use the room right after me.
Okay.
And so you're there, you turn off the light, but you can hear everybody outside. You can see light streaming in from the door, and you are frankly sitting there imagining every bare, hairy ass that has been in and around that room. And so you do your thing, you give them the cup, you walk out of the room, you don't tell anyone about it. And by the way, it was right next door to a Chinese restaurant. So you're kind of getting the waft of like lo mein as you're walking out.
Okay, wow.
Okay.
Maybe you shouldn't buy this place.
And you, exactly. And you wait a week to get your results. And for that entire week, you're sitting asking yourself, am I infertile? Is there something wrong? You finally get your results. You frantically scan them. You just see a bunch of numbers. You don't know what anything means.
Yeah, it's probably a bad, crappy PDF that they sent you.
Yeah, 100%. And in my case, one of my 5 parameters was a little bit below the normal range. And I didn't know, today I know, that it was like not an issue at all. But at the time, I'm like, does this mean I can never have kids?
Yeah.
Or is this just one of those things where it's like, oh, you're slightly outside the normal range, no one cares? And so I came out of that thinking, there has got to be a better way. And this is right around the time that companies like Roman and Hims had taken off with this concept of at-home, discrete healthcare services for otherwise stigmatized topics, in their case, erectile dysfunction and then hair loss. And my view was, if you could create an at-home product, if you could price it affordably, and if you could brand it right, then why wouldn't every man freeze their sperm? Why wouldn't every person with sperm freeze their sperm, right? Just as a matter of fact and just as a life milestone because it is such a no-brainer. And hence, legacy.
So walk me through a little bit more in the timeline here.
Yeah.
You have this horrible accident, which thank God, by the way, those burns surely fully recovered.
Yeah.
That's great. And then you go to this clinic and you're like, this is an abhorrently horrible experience. 99.9% of people, by the way, they have that abhorrent experience.
Yeah.
They forget about the next day.
Yeah.
Right. But you decided to actually, I'm going to dedicate basically my entire life and livelihood, we know as founders, right, to building legacy. What's the timeline from, you're burnt and you go to this clinic to actually starting legacy? Is it like a couple years or?
Couple years. I was just starting my master's at Harvard. I had just been accepted. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, all right, I'm not Mark Zuckerberg. I'm not going to drop out of Harvard and start this company. And also there's so much learning that I need to do. I know very little about sperm. And so I spent the next couple of years on top of my studies basically taking continuing education courses, like signing up for the American Society for Reproductive Medicine, like reaching out to potential advisors, talking to everyone I knew about sperm. That's where I got the moniker Sperm King from my friends who thought I was unhinged because all I would talk about was how sperm was the future.
So you spent a couple years in the lab, so to speak, right? So
kind of incubating the idea.
Incubating the idea. So before actually creating legacy, you proverbially went to the woods, you pulled your Walden, and you went deeper than anyone else in sperm.
Yeah, totally. And I was always convinced, especially in the early days. So we ended up, fast forward a couple of years, we ended up joining the Harvard Innovation Labs.
Okay.
And it was for ventures run
startups actually come out of the Harvard Innovation Labs? You're the only actual startup I've ever heard that's actually mentioned that.
There's a lot of good ones.
There's good ones. Okay, I'm making fun of it for no reason. Okay, good.
It's not the same as a YC or maybe Stanford, but there are some fantastic companies that have come out of it.
Okay, what year is this now?
Whoop, by the way, by Will Ahmed.
Really?
Is also an iLab incubated startup. Fun fact. But so we start there, and that is where we actually kind of created the kit, brought in our advisors.
Wait, so what year is this? So okay.
So fast forward a couple years, May 2018.
So you got burnt in then 2015 or something?
Yeah, and then a couple years
later.
later.
You do your master's at Harvard.
Yes.
Okay, so you actually graduate.
I did graduate.
Why, so you didn't have the courage to drop out? What's going on?
I did not have the courage to drop out.
That's okay. It's not for everyone.
And in fact, because you did drop out, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look.
Harvard, it's Harvard.
It was time. Look,
your parents are going to kill you.
100, and I had a full scholarship.
I mean,
so imagine turning that down. And so actually, even after I graduated, I took a job in Switzerland for a little while.
Are you serious?
Working with the World Economic Forum in Davos.
Wait, didn't have to do with sperm or no? You just economic
unrelated
job?
To sperm. But I kind of kept working on my sperm idea.
So you were kind of obsessed. Like the side project became the main project.
Totally.
That kind of vibe.
2017, this big study comes out. Dr. Shauna Swan, who's a legend, showing that sperm counts had declined by 50 to 60% in the past 40 years. And I still remember I was with a bunch of my colleagues, my kind of people I worked with, and they obviously all knew that I was thinking about sperm. And I told them, this is it. This is it. And I started making the preparations to leave. And so
to leave Switzerland,
to leave everything, start legacy,
and then so you went back to Harvard then, and then at the iLab, you built legacy. You built the first version. Did iLab give you some capital initially, like 25?
No, but they gave us space. They gave us resources. They gave us a lot of.
And
what
you have
we
sperm,
needed.
so that you
tons
have
of sperm, lots of sperm.
Okay, great.
Yep. So we were very self-sufficient.
Self-sufficient there. That's great. And then so you start building the initial stuff. Whatever. You apply to YC.
Yeah, we actually applied to YC 3 times. The first time while I was still working in Switzerland, I think they gave me a pity interview.
A pity interview.
Like, who is this dude in Switzerland talking about sperm?
This poor sucker.
Solo founder.
Yeah, okay.
Non-technical. Right?
Hard.
And so they gave me an interview, which I bombed. Like, it was terrible. Because at the time, I didn't know how to say, we're going to have a very high LTV to CAC. Right? It was like, oh, well, if you think about how long people would freeze their sperm for and you compare that to the relative cost, maybe of finding ways to reach it. I was using normal English language, and that's not what YC wants to hear. I also did not have kind of the standard blue chip. I didn't go to Stanford. I didn't drop out of Stanford.
How about Harvard?
Yeah? Yeah, but YC has kind of a mix. Harvard is blue chip. Is East Coast blue chip.
Okay.
But YC likes the West Coast blue chip.
Okay.
They like Stanford. They like computer science. They like you dropped out. They like that you worked at Uber or Instacart or something in that world.
They don't want the Switzerland guy.
Not at all. I was a business guy, master's at Harvard, living in Switzerland. It didn't make sense the same way that like the classic, like your profile makes sense.
Oh my! But I don't know. Penn is not really blue chip.
but you,
it's definitely not Harvard.
Sure.
And it's on the East Coast. I don't know.
Sure. That's fair. Well, let's come back to that. We could unpack it. But so interviewed the first time, did not get an in-person interview after that. They gave me a video interview.
Oh. Didn't know they did
second
that.
time applied, didn't even get an interview. But the thing is, I was like, I don't need YC. I am going to build this startup. And so by the third time we applied, I had been running the business. We had launched a product. I had my first 30 customers, which I think the first 10 were me and my brother, right? But like we had real customers, we had actual revenue. And so when we applied, they're like, okay, well, how far along are you? I'm like, look, we're doing it. And in fact, a week before we got accepted to YC, we raised our first $1 million from Bain Capital Ventures.
Wow. So you actually raised around prior to YC?
We raised around prior to YC.
Pre-seed, seed or something?
That was pre-seed, whatever you want to write. The names are all kind of, But call it a pre-seed.
$1 million.
$1 million.
Wow.
And then we got into YC a week after that term sheet.
Wow.
Yeah.
You think that influenced that getting to YC, the capital?
They didn't seem to care at all.
They didn't seem to care. I don't think they cared,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the fact that you were so persistent in applying is ultimately what put you over the line, right? It's like if you don't quit, they just have to accept you eventually. What are you going to do?
This is, by the way, this is my own personal view. Whenever founders reach out to me, I say, look, I would love to help. Reach out to me in 6 months. If you are still doing this in 6 months, I will do anything you want. I'm so happy to help.
Yeah.
But the number of people who've reached out to me over the years, super excited, super passionate.
So
oh my God,
excited.
I'm going to do this. This is incredible. I need you now. Can you talk tomorrow? And then 3 months later, you never hear from them again.
Yeah.
So that's my rule of thumb. I'm like, if you've just, I need to see 6 months, and I need to know that you are full ass in this, not half ass, not no ass. I need to know full ass, because that is the only way you're going to survive as an entrepreneur.
Wow, that's a great start, and I could not agree more with that. Right? There's this exponential decay function. The more time increases, you'd be amazed when people drop off. It's like, I saw this thing one time on Twitter. It showed basically a 100-day coding challenge. How many people start? How many people finish?
How many people finish?
It's literally an exponential function. It's the same thing. Now imagine that on steroids.
People like the idea of being an entrepreneur.
Love the idea.
What they don't understand is being an entrepreneur is you are shit eating.
Yes.
Professionally.
Yes.
Relentlessly. Endlessly, day in and day out. What have I done for the last 6-7 years of my life? I've eaten shit every day.
Yeah. It's, the proverbial eating glass.
You know what? That's more elegant. I'll say eating glass from now on. Yeah. I'll say eating glass.
Sean Parker, I think, said that from Napster. He said eating glass.
He's not wrong. You're eating. You're eating something that's unpleasant.
Yes. I want to ask you a little bit about kind of the industry.
Sure.
Right? We're talking about legacy specifically, but really you're in a broader category of male fertility.
Right.
And if you look at the kind of zeitgeist today, right? People talk about, calories, macros, sleep trackers.
Totally.
They talk about, blood testing, maybe even a little genetics. Right? Not as much as the other ones, but maybe a little bit genetics.
Lots of genetics.
Right? And then I don't, as much do I hear about sperm quality. Do I hear about even male fertility?
Totally.
That its concept is still a frontier concept.
Right.
That is not very much in the zeitgeist. Why?
Yeah.
Why is it still taboo? Why is it not the thing? I mean, I agree with you. Every guy should do this. Obviously, it's sort of like a no-brainer, just like every person should get their genome sequenced.
Yeah.
Kind of a no-brainer thing.
Total no-brainer.
But, you look around, doesn't seem really be like something people are talking about. Why is that? Why is it still taboo?
I will start by saying that we overestimate what we can do in a year, and we underestimate what we can do in 10.
Okay.
In 2014, the concept of egg freezing was still considered experimental and potentially unsafe by the American Society for Reproductive Medicine, the ASRM. They are kind of, they're the leaders in the space. Look at it today. Every person that I know who's female has either thought about or gone through the process of freezing their eggs if they're not married at a certain age.
Yeah.
How much that concept normalizes is extraordinary. Sperm freezing is on the same path. But sperm freezing didn't exist as a concept until 2019. So we're 5 years behind the world of egg freezing. So by 2029, you're going to see that this is going to become as normal for sperm freezing as it is for women today to think about egg freezing.
So in the context of egg freezing, I definitely think just intuitively a lot of people are talking about, IVF a lot more.
Yeah.
Right? IVF has sort of become more of less of an option for
Donald
women who are
Trump
in
said that
fertility.
he was the self-proclaimed father of IVF. And he
Donald
also
Trump said that.
Donald Trump
And
said that.
What was the context?
Yep. Nobody knows. I'm the father of IVF. Everybody knows it. It's a terrific thing to be doing. No, but it's a serious topic, and what he was talking about in the context of, well, one of the ways we need to increase the birth rates is potentially by having IVF covered by insurance companies.
Yes.
And he said he may actually mandate it federally that insurers need to cover IVF, which in most states it's not covered by insurers. So to your point about IVF, and I think the broader point you were making, which is it has been in the news, the biggest challenge we face today is that people still think of fertility as a women's issue.
Yes.
That is a point of view that is outdated and wrong.
Okay.
Because when you actually dig into the causes of infertility, it is a third male factor infertility in a traditional heterosexual, in a heterosexual couple. 1/3 male infertility, 1/3 female infertility, and then 1/3 that is joint or unexplained, which tells you that the sperm is just as likely to be the cause of infertility as the egg. And we now know things that we didn't even know 5 years ago, which is actually increasingly we believe that genetic conditions in children are coming from DNA damage that builds up in the sperm. So, for example, there have been studies by Dr. Michael Eisenberg at Stanford, one of our advisors and just an absolute giant in the field, showing that advanced paternal age, i.e. older dads, is correlated and associated with, right, a rise in autism spectrum disorder in children, alongside a whole host of other issues like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, low birth weight, miscarriages, gestational diabetes for the mother, the list goes on, all of which we now know are associated with older sperm that has more DNA damage.
So basically the TLDR, what you're just saying is the older a guy is, the more the DNA in the sperm basically goes through this sort of de novo mutation process, which is, say a little bit more simply, there's more errors in someone's DNA.
100%.
Okay, so there's more errors in someone's DNA, and because of that, the likelihood of them being able to have a perfectly healthy child goes down.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct. Let me put it this way. I am 36. I first froze my sperm, I think, when I was 26.
And are you dating anyone? Are you married? Give us the layout here.
Not at the moment of filming.
Not at the moment of filming. Okay. At the filming. Okay.
Yeah.
Important.
Yeah.
Hear that?
Yeah. Let's clarify. We don't know when it's coming out. We don't know when people are listening. There's a lot of, a lot
of factors.
Things could change.
But the sperm is frozen for you, so it doesn't matter. So that's the thing. You don't feel that kind of pressure, or do you? Or I'm curious.
Weirdly liberating.
Liberating. Okay.
I had a surgery last year, and one of the thoughts I had before going in was, if anything happens to me, I got sick or something, I have frozen sperm. My cousin, kneed me in the testicles, the other day, or elbowed me rather by mistake.
Okay.
Right. But my first thought was, good thing I have sperm frozen.
Yeah.
And frankly, once I turned 35, which is kind of the point at which men begin to accumulate more DNA damage, I realized that, when it comes time to have children, assuming my partner is supportive, I would want to use my frozen sperm from when I was 26 because it is younger, it is healthier, it has less DNA damage. We're going to have healthier kids. And so as long as she is on board with that, I would prefer to, because the science suggests that by the 10 years mark, it is meaningfully better to use that frozen sperm.
Implicitly, to be clear now, you're saying that you're going to do IVF.
Totally.
100%.
Look, it's a two-person decision, but as long as my partner would be willing to do it, and let's say I end up with someone who's frozen her eggs, we could actually have a child without even having intercourse. You take the frozen sperm, you take the frozen eggs, you create the embryo, and you implant it.
And so basically the proposal is to go back to the first time you froze sperm, presumably it's the healthiest,
which, by the way,
highest vitality.
I was very healthy.
It was like a decade ago at this point,
It was a decade ago.
So you still have that sperm.
I still have that sperm. Wow. I still have that sperm, and the quality I have seen, by the way, I test my sperm quite frequently. So I have over 100 vials of frozen sperm.
Over 100 vials of sperm.
Brian,
100.
Over 100.
Okay, I'm going to call Brian right
either
now.
Either 104 or 108.
You got to have more than Brian Johnson then.
100%.
100%. That's easy.
There is no world where Brian Johnson has done this more than I have.
So are you the most? It must be the most in the world. 100 for a guy?
Most likely.
Most likely.
I would bet money. If anybody out there, I will give $100 to any man out there who can prove that he has more than
$1 per vial is on the line right now.
Exactly, on the line right now. I want everyone to hear that.
Okay, and so 100 vials of sperm collected last decade.
Yeah.
So did you do one like, I don't know, 10 a year? Like what? What are you doing?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Something like that. It is very important that you are using your own product. I try to, whenever possible, be an edge case to see if I can break our process.
Smart. That's so
right.
smart.
I do it. I do it frequently. Legacy is one of the few workplaces where you can masturbate on the job.
Okay. That's a company policy.
Company policy.
Okay. And it's to do Legacy, presumably.
To do Legacy, you can't use a
clarify.
competitor's products.
Okay.
Not that there's any real competitors out there.
There's no real competitors. Got it.
But point being, so if anyone out there has frozen more than 106 vials. Out there, and you can prove it, I will give you $100 personally. In fact, I will give you $1 for every vial you have frozen. Okay. And I am fairly confident that I have tested my sperm more than anyone in the country.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit more about that. But before we get there, let's say that you were the cultural czar.
Yeah.
Okay, we talked a lot about how right now it doesn't sound like the limitation for your business is a question of technology. It's not a question of infrastructure.
Correct.
It's not a question of regulations.
Correct.
It seems as if the main barrier is a kind of social taboo.
Totally.
Okay, so if you had a magical wand right now, right, what belief would you change in the zeitgeist, in the masses, amongst amongst men? What would you change?
Simple.
What?
Simple.
What would you change?
It is the belief that you as a male can have a healthy child at any age.
Okay.
It's a very important distinction because you can technically have a child much later. I think Robert De Niro was, I don't know, maybe 79.
Yeah.
He recently had a child. But when you actually look at the older celebrities who have had children at a late age, they have a disproportionately high percentage of children who are born with special needs. That doesn't get advertised, of course, but it is a fact. It is a fundamental truth. And so changing the idea, sperm health is not eternal.
What if I push back on you a little bit and said, but let's say someone's, 28, they want to have a kid or quote unquote organically, naturally, whatever you want to say it.
Yeah.
They have sex, they have a kid. Does this person need to freeze their sperm?
Probably not.
Probably not? Okay.
Probably not. I mean, look, if it were up to me, I would want to normalize the concept of freezing your sperm when you're 18.
Yeah.
Right? You're going off to college and you're presumably going to go off to, sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, your parents sit you down, they have an awkward conversation, they hand you a legacy kit, and they say, hey, son, before you go off, just freeze your sperm because we want to make sure we can have grandchildren.
Yeah.
But look, if you're 28 and you're planning on having children naturally in the next few years, no, you probably shouldn't freeze your sperm. To me, it's an insurance policy.
Yeah.
Right? It's an insurance policy. I like knowing that if something were to happen to me in the next, let's say I froze my sperm today. I like knowing that if something were to happen to me in the next 5 years, that I'm still okay and I can still have a family. And I like knowing that 10 years from now, I can use that sperm through IVF to have a healthier child than I would at that point in time, at that age.
Makes a lot of sense. So I want to go back to this fact that you are you have more vials of sperm than anyone.
Yep.
So I want to a little bit kind of double click on what have you learned then about sperm quality.
Great
all right?
question.
So first thing is, because this is my area of expertise, genetics versus lifestyle.
Yeah. Oh, this is so
I
you.
mean, what?
This is so you. Right.
What's going on here, Khaled? What's going on here?
Nature versus nurture.
Maybe are you thinking to yourself, okay, you were telling if I do these things, my sperm quality changes, but is there an inherent kind of vitality to your sperm? Like, tell me a little bit more about this.
Okay, so certain people are genetically predisposed to have lower sperm counts.
Okay.
So, for example, and don't quote me on this, but I remember a study saying that if your father had gone through infertility himself or had low sperm count, you were more likely as his son to also have.
I'm sure we could even analyze that and give that to customers if they're interested. Yeah.
You probably could. Sounds like a product in the making.
Sounds like a product in the making.
Sounds like a product in the making. But sperm is actually a biomarker for your health. Okay. So your sperm quality is actually fairly representative of your overall health and lifestyle. And I have tested myself enough times over a long enough period of time to know, and I actually posted probably the most unhinged LinkedIn post of all time about this. I showed my sperm quality when I was fundraising versus when I wasn't fundraising.
I have not seen this post. Okay, you have to send this to me after. I want to see this
And
post.
it takes about 2.5 to 3 months for your body to go through the process of spermatogenesis, i.e. to produce and generate new sperm.
And it takes about 2.5, 3 months to raise money, or less.
In 2020, less. In 2021 onwards, more.
Okay.
I would say, well, not I would say, I actually showed that when you look at my sperm quality in the periods immediately following the fundraise, my sperm quality had plummeted, right?
Wow.
Stress, poor sleep, right? You're running around, you're probably traveling, meeting with investors, sperm count plummeted. Then after we closed the round, within a couple months,
Recovered.
not just recovered, like shot back up.
Wow.
Shot back up because you're feeling peaceful, you're calm, you're relaxed, your future is, certain, and so on. And so you could see a very clear correlation. Fundraising, finish fundraising, straight back up.
Wow.
Yeah.
So basically, your short answer for is like, yes, genetics matters. You should probably know what your added score.
Totally.
But also lifestyle is critical.
Lifestyle is
So
very important.
it sounds like stress, bad for sperm.
So, I mean, yeah. And in fact, when we had talked about potentially hosting this interview in a spa or a steam room or a sauna.
Yeah.
And I said, actually, that would be very off brand for us.
Yeah.
It's because one of the things that harms spermatogenesis is heat.
Wait, so it is true that saunas and hot tubs can kill our sperms.
Kill them.
Okay, you're telling me. So wait. Okay,
Yeah.
can you get what? How do you?
Do you know why the testicles hang from the body?
To keep it cool,
To
presumably.
keep them cool.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So then you're
To keep
telling
them
me,
cool.
but it does the benefits. A lot of times people say, go to a sauna, go to hot tub because there's some longevity benefit. It does something, God knows what, extends your lifespan, etc. Does the added benefit of a sauna get taken away by the sperm?
If you've frozen your sperm before you do all this
stuff. It doesn't matter then.
Well, I mean, look, it does matter. If you're trying to conceive, if you're thinking about having kids,
okay,
cut out the sauna, cut out the steam room, cut out anything that puts heat, like long bike rides, like wearing briefs, actually, anything that just increases the heat around your testicles. Cut all that out. And actually, one thing that is worth mentioning, because I'd be willing to bet that a lot of your listeners and the tens of thousands of customers that you've had as well are the kind of people who are likely to be interested in something like, or they're going to be biohacker types, they're interested in their bodies. Maybe they're looking at testosterone, TRT. Huge industry these days.
Huge. Yeah, a lot of people are on TRT. A lot of very wealthy Silicon Valley types are on TRT.
Correct. What 73% per our own studies, we did a nationally representative study, found that 73% of men who take TRT thinks it makes their sperm quality better. What they do not know is it actually takes your sperm count to 0.
What?
To 0.
No.
Correct. It is when you introduce exogenous testosterone, and our chief medical officer could explain this much better than I could. But long story short, when you take testosterone and inject it into the body, it cuts off your sperm production. So you are actually functionally infertile when you take TRT for the duration of which you are taking that TRT.
This seems highly concerning and not at all well known.
Not at all well known at all.
Is there some industry forces at work here?
We've tried to partner with some TRT partners.
Yeah.
And many of them do great work, but they are disincentivized
to basically
tell men before they start TRT, because a man might freak out and say, oh, I don't want to shut off sperm production. And so I'm just going to stop TRT.
You're implicitly telling that if someone's on TRT, they actually can't then have kids.
Correct.
So then they must find out one way or another during the course of the TRT,
Totally.
wait a second, something's not working.
The number of couples we've had that have come to us over the years saying, hey, we're trying, and we're like, oh, do you do anything? You take any supplements, anything? It's like, oh, yeah, I take testosterone, but I'm sure that, it's probably good for it, right? And you have to explain to them, actually, no. We had one guy who was like, yeah, I take testosterone, I hit the sauna every day,
I take bike rides every other day.
Yeah, I'm doing like 4-hour bike rides a day, and we're like, oh boy, you probably have negative sperm count.
Wow. So basically, there's two industries here that, to some extent, you're kind of coming after. One is saunas, you're saying, not good for sperm.
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to have
kids.
kids.
Cold plunge, however.
Very good.
Probably
good.
Is
very good.
Probably
good.
Okay,
probably good.
Yeah.
And then we also have TRT.
Yeah.
So if you were trying to have kids, you would not advise on TRT at all.
No,
it just basically destroys
you. Simply shouldn't. You simply should not.
Wow.
The only exception is if you've frozen your sperm before you start TRT. And by the way, many men who start TRT just keep doing it for years and years and years and years. So to go off TRT is actually a pretty big deal. But if you
Isn't
frozen,
dangerous? I think it's dangerous too. to some extent. If you don't do TRT, I'm saying if you get off TRT, there's some process. Right?
I don't know it well enough. But yeah, if you were thinking about TRT,
which one's worse then? TRT, smoking, or sauna for sperm quality? TRT is the worst because it destroys all the sperm.
And then probably sauna, depending on how often you're going.
Sauna's that bad?
Smoking.
Wow.
So, yeah. But smoking also very bad for your sperm quality.
But sauna is worse, just so people have some perspective.
Depends how often you're going, but if you are going every day, I would guess, I'd have to look back at our data.
Okay.
Because we do have this data, but I would guess that sauna would actually be worse.
Wow.
Daily sauna.
And then the tight underwear?
Yeah. Tight underwear, not great. Not great. So
okay, we talked about the bad things. What's the good things?
Yeah.
Give me the superfoods. Give me the what can I eat to boost my sperm, more vitality.
So Mediterranean diet is the best overall diet for sperm quality.
Okay. You want a Mediterranean diet?
I am Mediterranean. Yeah, I live the Mediterranean
true. It's in your
diet.
DNA.
Yes, correct. There's things like tomatoes that I believe have lycopene in them. Nuts also very good. You have. If you are looking at supplements, you should be looking at CoQ10. That's probably one of the best, the most scientifically validated for improving your sperm quality. Those are a few.
Are you on that?
Yeah. I have been cycling it actually because as I test my sperm and how it changes over time, I'm trying a test where I take we have a line of fertility supplements.
Okay.
So I'm trying out our own supplements, watching my sperm quality go up, and then going off the supplements and watching it go back down.
Wow. So in the last 10 years, after these 100 vials of sperm, what have you specifically consistently done that has most materially changed your sperm quality? So between these supplements, between these different food diets, whatever, what are you doing that you're like this is the thing that after 10 years is most consistent?
For me, it's stress.
Stress.
For me personally, and it's going to vary.
It's going to vary for everyone. Though, no?
In general, but fundraising,
stressful.
Right? As you know, right? Running a company is hard.
It's really hard.
You have to make a lot of tough decisions. You're eating glass all the time.
Yeah.
See, it's more elegant. It's more elegant.
You want to cite the quote?
Okay. That way.
And then so you are managing your stress, and then that will basically most effectively help your sperm count.
Totally.
You've mentioned how you've actually seen that already, fundraising and post fundraising. And I have a question for you then. In the last 10 years, from going from 25 to whatever, 35, how old are you? 35? 36. Have you seen your sperm quality actually go down on average?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's a slow but inevitable decline. So the general rule of thumb is sperm quality declines about 1 to 1.5% year over year. Now again, over 1 year, 2 years, it's not that material, but
over time,
after
really
10
compounds.
years, and especially once DNA fragmentation starts to build up. So we do a DNA fragmentation test. We have that as one of our offerings, and you can actually see men who are older have higher levels of DNA fragmentation in their sperm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then I have to ask this.
Yeah.
Frequent sex.
Yeah.
Frequent ejaculation.
Yeah.
Does it impact sperm quality?
Yes, it does. So
better,
both
worse?
Good and bad. Good and bad.
Okay, so
so your optimal sperm quality is after 3 to 4 days of abstinence.
Interesting.
2 to 5 days is fine as well.
So you'd want to, if you're having a kid, you'd want to stop having sex, and then maybe 3 to 5 business days, you let it go.
3 to 5 business days. It actually,
you go back and you have sex.
It's a little trickier for couples that are actively trying to have kids because the fertile window is not that long.
Oh, that makes sense.
And so I've seen some studies suggesting that actually you should just have as much sex as you can.
Okay.
Like just, quantity over quality.
Okay.
And I've seen others that say, no, actually try to time it so that you've abstained from ejaculation for 3 to 4 days when the fertile window opens up. And then try to do it again, a couple of days later.
So basically, it seems as if the jury's still out on this. It's not really.
It may. I don't know this topic well enough to give kind of a definitive answer. There may be a clear answer out there. If there's, I personally haven't seen it.
Do you have more or less sex?
Yeah.
Based on to kind of modify your sperm quality. Have you tried it?
I have noticed a correlation between periods of increased sexual activity and my sperm quality.
Okay, so. More sex, higher quality.
From
your personal experience, is that true?
I will eventually be publishing these results in a peer-reviewed journal, and you'll have to wait until.
Okay, but just to be clear, what you just said, at an anecdotal level, more sex, more quality.
I would say this: I think that your libido, your amount of sexual activity, and your sperm counts are all related.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. So I'll be looking out for that paper.
Sure.
I'm gonna mark.
I'll send you some preliminary results.
I'm very much looking forward to that. And by the way, is this peer-reviewed paper? Is it on just your sperm specifically?
It is going to be an NF1, which is
that's amazing.
So what you need to do in that case, my target is 100 samples, and that is 100 samples, not just of anything, but 100 samples where I have tracked everything.
So this has been this is going to be a huge, massive study. This is probably one of the most detailed individual sperm studies ever.
It will be by far. So
you're kind of like the Brian Johnson of sperm.
Yeah.
Move
over Brian Johnson.
Move over.
He may be
Brian
tracking
Johnson.
his nighttime erections, but we're tracking.
By the way, do you track that?
I do not.
Yeah, why not?
I do not.
No?
It just seems like a lot of work.
I
think it is something that is fun to share in the press and will get some pickup. Is it important to me personally? It is not. Although I mean, it's proven.
Probably correlated, by the way, with sperm quality and counts.
It is proven that you should be waking up in the morning with an erection. It is actually a sign of good overall health. And if you are having issues with erections or erectile dysfunction, it actually can be a sign of a deeper issue.
If you're not getting erect at night.
Correct.
So if you are, it's better quality.
Yeah.
It's presumably these things are correlated, right?
Yes.
I mean, probably.
Yes.
Yeah. The more erect you are, the better sperm you get.
Yeah, because it's associated with blood flow. It's associated with overall health.
Have you tested, Brian? Have you tested his sperm?
I could not confirm or deny.
You cannot. Okay, because you're HIPAA, PHI.
If he were to share anything, he would be welcome to about whether he has or has not.
Okay, that's a fair answer.
Yeah.
Maybe we got to follow up with Brian on that.
Yeah.
All right, interesting. I want to then once again, we talked a lot about now male fertility. We talked about kind of this idea of all the different factors that impact sperm quality, which sounds like a lot, right? A lot of different factors. A lot of people kind of put sperm as sort of maybe the last biomarker.
Correct.
But maybe you're saying it should be a little bit earlier in the conversation.
And also, I want to interject, which is, think of how easy it is to produce a sperm sample. It is one versus. Have you ever done those at-home blood tests?
Yeah.
I hate those.
Yeah. They're horrible.
I hate those.
Very
right?
hard.
Saliva test fine, urine test fine. The blood I find is particularly tough. Now you compare that to producing a sperm sample at home. It's an easy and for some men enjoyable experience.
You enjoy collecting your sperm at home?
As a general rule of thumb. Well, I will say there's days where you're just really not in the mood, but you're doing it for science.
You're for science.
You're doing it for science.
Good man.
Yeah.
Doing it for science.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to jump back to company building.
Sure.
Okay. And so we spoke about how you were at Harvard and then you got into YC.
Yeah.
You have one of my now favorite stories about you're at YC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everyone knows, you give in, it's like a pitch day. And you have to, say why you're, you have to sell your fruit, whatever. You have to go to the bazaar. You have to say this is the best fruit. You need to buy this fruit.
Okay.
So you're going up in front of investors.
Yeah.
It's kind of like give me kind of the what are you seeing? What are you hearing here? It's a big stage, big audience, a lot of investors. Big moment for you. It's demo day. You're pitching your company, and you made Paul Graham, the founder of Y Combinator, take his hand and slap his head.
That is correct.
Tell me this story.
So look, there were about 1,000 investors who were watching us up on stage. And you have 2 minutes. And at the time, YC, I think, had taken maybe 200 startups into its class.
Wow.
And so...
By the way, what's your thoughts on that? 200 startups seems like a lot.
It's a lot.
Too much, or what do you think?
It seems like they've figured out how to scale it. I mean, we went through summer 2019, so it's been, 5-ish years. So I don't know enough, but I will say it worked well for us. And we were in person. It was pre-COVID. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, if I'm an investor, right, I'm hearing about aeronautics, I'm hearing about vertical agriculture, then I'm hearing about consumer health.
AI doesn't exist at this point.
Yeah, AI did not exist.
There's no AI.
Yeah, correct.
People don't know what that is.
Now it would just be AI and
now
then
it's
AI.
Next pitch.
Another
AI. Next pitch. AI. Okay,
exactly.
but now there's no AI.
Exactly. We actually have someone on our team. Her name is I, and it's spelled AI.
Oh, wow.
And so she's got really poor SEO for her name. Nevertheless, so I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, how do we stand out, right? We are a novel and interesting topic, right? You say sperm on stage and eyes are going to open.
But also consumer health at this point, 2019,
Consumer
not necessarily
health,
all the rage.
Yeah.
It's come very far in the last 6 years.
It's come very far. It's come very far.
So
we were
that's
one of
what I
a
think.
small handful of consumer health startups that were accepted.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think it was more of a bet on us as legacy than on the space or on consumer health specifically. So I say, okay, well, let's make one carefully well-timed joke. Because what we wanted to do was go up on stage and say, hey, actually, we've already raised $1 million from Bain Capital
Hell
Ventures. Like, we are probably one of the safest bets. And we've
In
raised...
fact, fuck you.
Yeah.
We don't need your money. That's actually what we wanted to say.
Sure.
Sure?
It feels like
Okay.
the scene in Silicon Valley where Ehrlich is going around and kind of, berating all the investors. But yeah, it's powerful to say that we don't need your money. So what I wanted to do is go up on stage and say, hey, we've already raised $1 million from a phenomenal investor. We're a low-risk bet.
Yeah.
But per YC rules and I think SEC regulations, we cannot talk about our financials.
What?
We were not able
SEC
to.
regulations. No,
I think,
come on.
yeah, because there's certain rules around, I think it's called solicitation, where basically YC says that their demo day is not a solicitation,
Interesting.
but it is kind of informative, or like it's information giving. And by mentioning who your investors are, it's almost implying that you want more investors. There's a whole nuance to it. Long story short, we could not mention Bain Capital, so I'm like, all right, well, there's another hook that we have. So I got up on stage.
Just one.
And
by the way, just
what?
one other hook.
Yeah, because you don't I wanted to do one because you don't want to be cheesy. You don't want to undermine your own product. Ultimately, we are selling a serious product with serious implications, so we didn't want to be too jokey about it.
Okay.
We wanted it to be attention grabbing, and so
You don't want to grab people by the balls.
we want to grab people by the attention.
Okay.
And so get up on stage, again, knowing there's 1,000 people watching, most of whom are kind of in the room. And I get up on stage and I say, okay, great. Today to freeze your sperm, you have to go to a clinic and you have to masturbate at the clinic to produce a sperm sample. And I put up a photo of a black leather couch. Everyone knows what that black leather couch represents. The men in the audience definitely know what the black leather couch represents. And then I say, but we don't want to change existing consumer behavior. And we know that men love masturbating at home. And then I put up a photo of our kit. And everyone died laughing. Like it was you can hear in the video, a wave of people laughing. Paul Graham, I look over at him and he's just like, oh my God, I can't believe one of our companies just did this. But right after, we were literally surrounded. There was a circle around me of investors who really wanted to invest in the company because they found it so interesting. And we ended up raising, I think it was about $3.5 million, led by Section 32 was our biggest investor at that point. They're phenomenal, Bill Maris and his team. And so clearly it worked. It was a carefully calculated risk that we took on the basis of the fact that sperm is inherently an attention-grabbing topic.
Wow.
And I don't think anyone has used the word masturbation on stage before then or since then.
So you're going to claim you're the only YC startup that
As
went
far
up
as
on
I know.
stage, as far as you know, and
I will
said
give
the word
$100
masturbate.
to anyone else who has done
Okay,
that.
so we have another bounty
Another
here.
bounty.
$100 if someone else
bounty.
can find some
Yeah.
demo day interview or pitch, I guess.
I feel like there might have been like a sex toy startup. I could imagine that. I don't know if YC has backed any, but I
Sex
could see
tech?
that.
There's not a lot of sex tech, but maybe sex tech.
Yeah, I could imagine sex tech.
I could see that too.
Yeah.
The YC version. Someone should actually do that. I'm surprised it doesn't exist. There's a company that doesn't pop to my mind immediately. That's like a problem. Someone should go solve that.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay. So you did this. You raised some more money. My kind of naive. I'm going to ask you the naive investor question.
Sure.
If you go look up sperm testing, there's a lot of different ways to get your sperm tested.
Sure.
Why you? Why Legacy? Why not someone else? I go on Amazon, I can order another testing kit. Why? Tell me why. Easy. Okay, why?
The first of which is operational complexity. We handle more sperm samples than anyone in the country, more than the average fertility clinic by a factor of 10 to 20, if not more.
Wow.
So we know sperm better than anyone. We have the most advanced tests, DNA fragmentation testing. We're the only company to offer it through mail-in, and we are one of maybe 50 to 75 clinics in the country that offer it. We are extremely good at what we do. Even when we freeze your sperm, we divide it. And this is super relevant, by the way, given the wildfires happening in California right now. Because any samples, sperm, eggs, embryos that are frozen at a clinic in LA or in California are at risk right now. What we do when we freeze your sperm is we actually divide it in two, and we store it in two different geographic locations to protect against things like natural disasters.
Holy moly.
Nobody else does this.
And that's just all included. You just
That's
do that de
all
facto.
all included.
Are you a medical laboratory?
A medical laboratory depends.
Are you CLIA cap?
Oh yeah, of course. Oh,
Okay,
CLIA,
you're CLIA,
cap,
you're
all of the
cap.
above. All of the above. Yeah.
So you own the lab.
Yeah, we have
as well as the analysis layer. You own the entire thing.
Correct.
You're CLIA, your
Correct.
cap, your physician order.
We've vertically integrated the process end to end. So that's one of our biggest strengths. The second is we work with so many amazing partners. So we work with, I think we have about 1,000 employers where legacy is included as part of their fertility benefits.
Wow.
We work with every major insurer. For example, we have a nationwide contract with United Healthcare.
Really?
Yep. We also work with Aetna, Cigna, Anthem, Emblem, you
How
name
did
it.
that happen?
Yep. A lot of work over a lot of years and a very talented team. We work with the U.S. military. So we freeze the sperm of the Navy SEALs. We have an exclusive program with the Navy SEALs to freeze their sperm. We do the same for the Green Berets. We work with VA centers all across the country. So again, we've managed to bring on these amazing partners, and that's very difficult to replicate because that was years of work and relationship building and activation work that we've done. The third of which is we have built a process end to end that is by far the best. It's seamless, it's easy. And even we work a lot with the LGBTQIA plus community. We are very careful. We work a lot with the trans community, for example. We're very careful not to use very gendered language, right? And I'm sure I've messed up a whole bunch as we've been talking today. But as a company, as a team on our website, for example, if you're transitioning, you have a dead name that you no longer use that is your old legal name, and then you have a preferred name. We'll use your preferred name and everything, right? We also have a lot of sensitivities around people who are undergoing medical treatments. If you're starting chemotherapy, we're going to expedite your shipment to you ASAP. If you are trying to conceive and you want to work with another clinic, we will coordinate everything for you. If you are, let's say, getting a vasectomy and you need some extra hand holding and you want to freeze your sperm before you before you snip it. We have spent so much time building a patient or client experience that is heads and shoulders above everyone else. And that is, it's so hard to replicate that. And of course, everything is digital enabled end to end. The last thing I will say is about 6 months ago, we released our latest kit. And our latest kit is miles ahead of anything in the market. It is tamper proof. It is shock resistant. It is temperature resistant. It is sterilized. It has been tested in all weather conditions. There's snowstorms happening in the Northeast right now, and we're not worried about our kits because we have tested it end to end. Nothing even compares. So you want to ensure the safety, security, and integrity of your sperm sample. The Legacy kit, which we call the Vault, the Legacy Vault is the only real option available to you.
Wow, so it's numerous.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's end to end. The product is just 10 times better.
End to end. That's right.
So basically, if someone thinks sperm freezing, they have to go to Legacy. It's just that simple. There's no thing even close. You think?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're making me convinced that I should, honestly, during the course of this conversation, I should freeze my sperm.
I'm a little offended you haven't already.
I honestly am.
I'm a little offended you haven't already.
I am, maybe, and you should be, and you should be. Where is the industry going?
To a world where male fertility is just as frequent and understood as female fertility.
Okay. That's
where the world is going. And and I know this because 5 years ago, no one in my social circles knew anything about sperm.
Or really health, but
Correct. And now fast forward 5 years, the average person has now heard something. They don't necessarily know the details, but they have heard that sperm counts are down. They've heard that sperm quality is getting worse. They've heard that birth rates are low. I predict a significant increase in government involvement and government interventions to try to increase the birth rate, because as things stand right now, every developed country in the world, every developed country has a birth rate that is just plummeting. And that has all kinds of implications for the way society functions, the way government functions, and just how large your population is.
There is the psychological game, the psychological difficulty of running a company is definitely it's still really underappreciated.
Yeah.
As much as it's something that's very glorified, especially today, there is such an intensity to it.
Yeah.
I always think it's greater to be compared to kind of being an elite athlete, or trying to be an elite athlete over really anything else, right? Because people I think intuitively understand the pressure and dedication required to become Kobe Bryant or the like. But they less don't understand that in the context of the business world, right? Because when you raise money, it sounds like so much money. It sounds like things are so great. There's almost this romanticism of it. So I think you're commenting something very real.
It's even when you think about how many. I remember the first time we passed $1 million run rate. I remember the first time we passed a $10 million run rate. And when you just look at what percentage of startups actually make it there, and what percentage of startups find product market fit, including the startups coming out of Y Combinator, right? So arguably the best, the most competitive. This is like the creme de la creme. And still most of those startups are going to die. And so having made it past those milestones was just a huge moment for us, because I have had, and I think actually I'll give you another answer to earlier. What has been really tough is off the startups that started with me at the Harvard Innovation Lab in kind of 2018, 2019, almost all of them are dead.
Wow. How many? What did you start with?
I think we were 13. I think there's one or two other that are still operating kind of in their current form. And these are, by the way, founded by
Harvard,
yeah, all of them Harvard grads, but all just smart, talented, capable people who I look to and I say, wow, this person's amazing. And I've invested in many of those startups, and people who I think are incredible. And watching them go under one after the other was very sobering.
How about your YC batch?
Yeah. The vast majority of my YC batches has gone under.
How many? You said 200.
Yeah,
How many you
200.
think?
I'm not sure how many are still alive.
20? 10% you'd guess? If you had to guess?
I think I would guess a little bit more than that.
It depends what we mean by live. Some probably got acquired in some fashion.
That's the thing. It's like
the
and
weird,
some are in zombie mode.
in between, yeah.
Some are kind of in between. But it's a small percentage. And I read somewhere, I don't know if this is true, but someone had said that 0.01% of startups make it to a $10 million run rate.
Wow, that seems very low. Maybe.
Right? But I mean, how many startups make it to a Series A?
Yeah.
Right? Not that many.
Yeah. But do you think
yeah.
there's that many good founders, though? What is the bottleneck here? Is it a technological bottleneck? Is it a, you know?
I think I'll actually, I will say what I started our entire discussion with, which is we overestimate what we can do in 1 year and we underestimate what you can do in 10 years. And I think a lot of this is just grueling stamina. Because
So you think it's a persistence problem?
I have been eating glass for 6-7 years now. And I will continue to do so for the rest of my life.
And you're saying that
yeah.
the other people won't, or they don't.
One of my favorite quotes from Paul Graham, and it's more true in the early days, but I think it is always true, which is a company dies when its founder gives up. Yeah. And I think every founder can relate to that, because I know there have been periods where I have found it tougher to get up and go to work, and I know that my company has suffered as a result. Yeah. And I know there's periods where I have been all in and raring to go, and I know that I have uplifted my company during that time. And I think it's one of the reasons why kind of immigrant founders tend to do well, because you have had to struggle and had grit to kind of figure out how to make it to the US and build your company and figure out your visa and all of that stuff. And so you just have a higher tolerance for pain. You have a higher threshold for pain. But that's what I think it comes down to. And we overestimate what we can do in a year, and we underestimate what we can do in 10.
I totally agree with that, especially on the point on immigrants. Yeah. There's just a higher pain threshold. Yeah. Right. It is this kind of open frontier of what building a company is. It's just this kind of white space. Yeah. And if the ability to be able to operate in that, and after getting kicked again and again and again and again and again in the balls, not to keep saying this, but again and again, and to have the courage, it really comes down to courage, not intelligence. It's like the old kind of Kteilian where it's like, what's in short supply is not actually intelligence. Yeah. There's actually a lot of intelligence. There's a lot of smart people.
A lot of smart people out there.
Far more smart people than there are people who are courageous and actually take the leap and then continue independent of the circumstance. I mean, at this point, you and I have seen so many trends. We've seen crypto, right? Come, go. And, I'm not saying crypto is completely dead. NFTs. We saw Web3, right? The hysteria. Now it's AI. And I think AI is probably the most real of all of them.
We're watching kind of the boom bust cycle.
Boom bust. You see it again. Yeah. No one's talking about consumer health.
Totally.
Especially not male fertility. They're not talking about really genetics either. Both are cropping up now, though. They're both on the rise.
Both still in the zeitgeist, but yes, but it does not compare to
does
AI.
Not compare. Does not compare.
If you're fundraising right now and you're not an AI company,
it's crazy.
It's an uphill battle.
Yeah, it's an uphill battle.
It feels like you're Sisyphus.
Right, exactly. And so to think that you have the ability to, regardless of what was going on with all the noise, all the investor noise, all the founder noise, everything going on Twitter, everything that you're hearing and reading, no one's, giving you a big thumbs up. No one's telling you that. To have the courage and the persistence in that time so that eventually what's going to happen, and this is something that I think gets often really missed by founders and people who are observers of Silicon Valley. It is always the case that these unsexy companies become the sexiest companies in the world.
100%.
Always.
100%.
It is always the case. Anduril, great example of this. Defense tech, you're crazy. No one's even going to look into this. Suddenly, everyone's talking about it. We love America. We love this. We love Palmer. It's amazing, right? There are these life cycles. During that decade period of time, though, there is no positive feedback. Totally. There is your imagination, your determination. And so that, I think, is what I find so impressive about you and what you're building, which is you had a deeply experiential problem.
Yeah.
You realize this marketing is completely fucked up.
Yeah.
And then you actually spent and now dedicated, years and years and years of basically graceless time building.
Yeah.
And it's never been sexy.
Yeah.
And that's what I found, and those are where I think the best ideas come from. So good job, good on you.
Thank you. I very much agree with that, and I also think it's great to be underestimated.
That's true.
It's great.
That's
to be
true. A lot of
underestimated.
alpha.
Yeah.
Wherever there's not a lot of attention, there's a lot of alpha. I find that all the time with genetics today as well. I'm sure that's true with
100%.
sperm. Right? You're probably like, wow,
100%.
no one's here.
Yeah.
We're just gonna kind of keep dominating. Like fuck.
Yeah. Exactly.
Khaled, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
This has been really awesome. I mean, I've learned so much about sperm quality.
Yeah.
Hot tubs, super fucking overrated.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta be careful with my underwear now.
Unless it's a form of birth control. If you want to make sure you don't have kids, go to the steam room every day. Hit the sauna every day.
That's good,
Start some TRT.
It's like if you're, upset at your husband or something, you're like, you should really go to your the sauna. It's like,
exactly.
yeah, sure, honey.
Exactly.
Like, it's like, the TRT is looking really good, I've heard.
TRT, you should start it.
If someone wants to learn more about you, about the Sperm King, about Legacy, where should they go?
GiveLegacy.com. That's the main one. SpermKing.com will redirect you to my personal LinkedIn. We have a great Instagram at GiveLegacy Inc. And we have some fantastic content there as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, guys, that's a wrap for High Alchemy. Another amazing episode today with Khaled. Cut the sequencing part for sure. I have to kill that answer.
Yeah.